Today I want to share a story with you. A simple tale about a town, a river, and a bus stop. It might sound ordinary, but it holds a powerful lesson about how small details can lead to big problems. Picture this, a bustling town sliced in two by a beautiful winding river. The only way to get from one side to the other is a single old stone bridge. With the building of a new housing development, the town council knew they needed to update their bus routes, so they sent a woman out with a clipboard and a friendly smile. She'd stop people on the street asking, "Excuse me, would you mind taking a quick survey about the new bus stop?" The survey was simple, just a few multiple choice questions. Which areas need coverage? What time of day would you use the bus? People would quickly tick a box, happy to help. They were given options, but no space to write in their own thoughts or suggestions. It's just a survey, they'd thought, handing it back without a second glance. They trusted the process. Fast forward a few months. The construction is done, and the shiny new bus stop is unveiled. There's just one problem. It's on the wrong side of the river. Statistically, it looked perfect, directly across from the new homes. But the detail of the river crossing was overlooked and not asked in the survey. But to get to it, residents now had to walk 2 miles and cross a bridge. The most convenient spot on paper had become the most inconvenient spot in real life. All because the survey never asked the right questions, nor had the detail needed for an accurate picture of what was needed. Just like in life, we often need the details to understand context, intention, and what is truly required. As details can change known to unknown, in survival we struggle sometimes with what we need most to create real change, the details and all that entails.
Hey y'all, it's Bear here. And in today's video, we're still looking at the world that is trauma through the eyes of the world that is co-regulation. And all the steps and understandings we really do need to have to be able to negotiate with ourselves and our nervous system, to be able to create the meaningful connections with our core inner circle of people, to help our nervous system heal and come out of survival. And a key component of that, our nervous system will always be at the core of this, because our nervous system is the pathway with which we interpret everything that goes on externally as well as everything that goes on internally. Conscious and non-conscious, our threat responses, our triggers, everything is governed by the pathways of our nervous system. So looking at it as this is the pathway of negotiation, of where we can create some of the resource ground or bases that we need to be able to negotiate with how we're triggered and how our threat response works. It is very helpful to understand and view the nervous system as the central pathway that we are negotiating with. With this in mind, all of us have taken surveys at some point in our life. And we know when we're asked questions and the answers that we give don't match with the answers that they have that they're allowed to use. Some are close, and they usually just pick the closest one, and that's the one that is, goes into the survey results. And we never think anything of it. But our nervous system works in a very similar way, in a very layman's understanding, of course. But when that inaccuracy, like if a survey is being used for services in a particular city's area or township's area, and the results are completely different from what the society in that place actually needs, there is issues. And we hit the same obstacle, because with trauma we need to find what is known to be able to function. Otherwise we are in such a hypervigilant state that we don't successfully fulfill the tasks we need to for our day-to-day survivability. So we create a cycle of known. We create a cycle of routines and where we place things and how we sit and where we go and what time we do things to create known. And if you want to look at this from a nervous system's perspective, this limits our ability to recognize opportunities, potentials, because our nervous system has been conditioned through our survival to have really only two categories, two boxes. We have a box for savior and we have a box for threat. And every experience and interaction we have has to fit into one of these two boxes. Much like the survey questions, our responses and what we believe is true has to be altered or diminished or reshaped or reinterpreted to fit into one of those two boxes. And when we look at it from this perspective, we can start to see how in the long run we create problems for ourselves. Much like I said earlier in the survey, if it doesn't directly reflect the needs of a society and government uses those results to allocate resources for that society, it is not going to function in the long term. In the short term, these sorts of misinterpretations don't feel overly important, but they create a narrative and feed a narrative and reinforce a belief. And if we only have two categories, savior and threat, what is going to save us from our survival, our threat, what's going to protect us, what's going to make the bad things go away, or what is just going to harm us. If we cannot change and amend those two categories, we will not find the opportunities or even see them to start to take the little steps that we need to come out of survival. There are no giant leaps within healing trauma. In my experience over decades, in my own personal journey and as a practitioner and in every sphere of life that I've been in, where I've recognized the implications and I've observed the implications of trauma and talking to countless numbers of people, excuse me, there are no large steps in healing trauma. It's always little ones. It's the little moments that make the greater difference, because the little moments are creating the ecology that supports whether we remain in survival or whether we start to build the connections we need to come out of survival. When we start to view trauma from having our nervous system at the core of it, we can start to see how, in a non-threatening way, we've, in a way of interpretation, only have regressed back to our infancy in the way we interpret things. Everything we believed in, everything our body believed in to protect us and keep us safe was taken from us by being overwhelmed through what happened that created our trauma response. When we go down the roads of freeze states and everything else, dorsal vagal shutdowns and so forth, there is nothing in our arsenal to stop what is happening to us, and we shut down to protect, to survive. That means everything we have learned didn't work, and our body knows it. We can convince our cognitive parts of our brain that yes, it didn't, we can use this bit, but our body doesn't believe it, because when it counted, it didn't work. And it's much with a lot of the people and the beliefs around us as well, is when it counted, they weren't there, or our beliefs didn't prevent what was happening. It's often referred to as a version of mortality checks. But in reality, the price tag of that, from it, the way we can work with it to understand it, is all our responses have reset back to our base, first 18 months of our life. And as an 18-month-old, things are very, very simple. Our needs are very, very simple. Our responses are very, very simple. And the categories that we put things into are very broad. I've often used the analogy, if you take for ice cream off a toddler, it's the end of the world, especially if they're enjoying it. In an adult, we have all these categories as to why the hell you're taking my ice cream. But as a toddler, it's the end of their universe. Well, that's the same as how our nervous system responds to how we categorize everything around us. And if we have only two boxes, what is going to save us and threat, it really narrows our ability to take these little steps out of survival, to build the ecology that will support creating the connections so that our nervous system can connect and co-regulate with others to broaden the number of categories we have for assessing the world around us. And that is the key piece of information to hold on to here. The negotiation is just to create the grey areas within the nuances of those two boxes, those two categories, and create more boxes within each category to where we broaden it. The reason co-regulation helps us come out of a threat state is because if their nervous system isn't perceiving a threat, our nervous system goes, well, maybe I need to reassess, creating another box. Then we look at what their nervous systems respond to, creating more boxes. And through that, we broaden how our nervous system responds to and interprets the world around us. And through that, we start to rebuild our life again, out of survival. Exactly how we did from infancy through, adolescence into adulthood and all the steps in between. We're going to go through an abridged version of that exact process to come out of survival, to heal and release our trauma. There is a great misconception that if we release the threat responses, we go through the tremor, we go through a process, that we go back to the person we were before those experiences. The sad truth is we don't. We are aware these things exist now and these things can happen. And if you're like me and you come born from a traumatic experience and all the steps that followed, you have to learn a different way to interpret the world again, much like we did when we were children. If we understand these steps, then we can take the little steps in our day-to-day life. We can start to recognize the nuances we need to create the paths of negotiation we need to learn. By creating gray areas, and even if we don't have people around us, what I do is I run not scenarios of threat, I run hypotheticals of exploration, of curiosity. I go, okay, I'm feeling triggered by doing that thing tomorrow. So what could go wrong? What can I do to shore up myself a little bit more? But I also write down or make a mental note of 3 or 4 of the most realistic negative outcome scenarios that could happen. Then I go and participate in that event, do that activity. And if one of those things happen, cool, I make a note of it. But if something completely different happened out of what I wrote down, then I've taught my nervous system that it is not always interpreting things correctly, much like that survey response. And through that, I can start to negotiate with that nuance that no, it's 100% not going to happen. It may be 85%, but it's not 100% going to happen. So that 15% I can negotiate with. And if you work with that over time, you build more and more leverage and nuance to work with your nervous system to create more categories, to be able to interpret what is going to help me and what is threat. In the next video, I want to go into a little bit more around the savior box. But in this one, just understand the importance of nuances, of being able to create more categories of interpretation of how your nervous system is interpreting around. It's not what your brain thinks. It's how your body is interpreting it and the categories you are putting your experiences into. When you understand that, you can start to take steps to negotiate, to build the environment, to have the co-regulation with those that are close to us, to be able to begin to heal our nervous system out of trauma. As always, I love your guys' comments and support for the channel. Please be mindful, please be safe, and I will see you all next time.